Hi everyone, how are you doing? You're welcome to this episode of the More in You podcast. This week I'm super excited because I want to share from one of my favorite books. It's almost like when I said I have two favorite books when it comes to personal development, and those two books are Intentional Living and 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. Those two books are phenomenal, but I think my most favorite, if there's any word like that, would be the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. That book for me has been like a guide. It's a book where you're talking of growing, increasing capacity. 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John C. Maxwell is a book that you always want to pick up. It's actually, I actually don't, I tell you, I don't even think it's actually a book. I almost see it like a guide. It's a guide that when you need questions answered regarding various levels of your growth, you can go there and you can learn from it, and you can use it to tweak things. I use it to teach, I use it to coach. It's a phenomenal book. And so this week I want to share on one of the laws in the book, which is the law of expansion. That law says growth always increases our capacity. You hear what I said? Growth always increases our capacity. I want to share something from there. It's two things that you and I must put in place if we're looking to increase in capacity or increase in impact. I know growth is a very interesting journey, just like John Maxwell says in that book. He often talks about how growth, when you first start growing, and I have actually seen that even in my life, when you first start growing, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to get to the extent whereby I don't feel like I need to grow anymore. I've gotten to capacity. I don't need to grow anymore. I've grown all I can. But rather is the reverse. You'll find out that as you begin to grow, one thing that's going to happen is that first of all, growth would not only remain just in that area that you're trying to grow, but it often spill over to other areas of your life. A good example would be you're saying, I want to grow myself mentally. So maybe, for example, I want to start reading some more. And you'll find that as you pick up books on that are going to help you develop your capacity mentally, other areas of your life will be developed like that. That's one big thing that I found out. And growth, you think would, in growing, you think I'm going to get to the fullness of my capacity, but no. Growth rather takes you on a journey. Growth is a journey. Just in one of my books, one of the books that I wrote, you can see it behind me, Intentionality Game Changer. I often talk about growth practices that can help you develop yourself. And these growth practices are practices that you don't stop using them. They work for you and you keep putting them to work day in, day out. And what I also find is that you can use these growth practices in various areas of your life. So they would apply spiritually, they would apply mentally. You can use them in your daily, everyday life. You can use them in your financial life. You can use them in your home. You can use them in various areas of your life. So let's get back to our topic. The two key things I want to share with us from this law of expansion, there are two key things that relate to growth. And when we're also talking about growth, before we get there, it was said in that book that experts have found out that we're not even using the fullness of our potential. So what he's saying is that most people use only like 10%. You would hear that, and I've actually heard that when if they say someone is a genius, it's not even like someone that is using 90% of their potential. It's maybe somebody using 15% of their potential, somebody using 16%. That is how much they even use. So imagine if you and I use like 90%, if we go that far and say, I want to grow myself so that my capacity can increase. Do you realize how much you would be able to do? That is what we're talking about today. So in looking at increasing our capacity in those two key ways, what are two things that can really help us? What are those two things that we can put in place that can help us to get to that place whereby we're increasing in capacity in various areas of our life? The first one is that we must change how we think. Did somebody hear me? You and I must change how we think. And the word of God says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. It simply means as a man processes things, so is he. As a man sees, so is he. As a man has a perspective, so is he. Whatever a man thinks on, the way you process things, the perspective at which you look at things, that is how you are. So we must change the way we think. And I would actually explain it. So one of the questions we want to look at is stop thinking more work. That's one of the questions that was brought out in that book. So how do we think? We must ask this question. We must ask ourselves this question. Stop thinking more work. Start thinking what works. So for you and I, and this is actually interesting because a couple of weeks ago, I was saying to a friend of mine that there are things that I've been doing for myself, for a while now, but I think it's about time to delegate it to somebody else to do for me, because it seems to be taking up a lot of my time. And as I sat down, I thought, should I actually get rid of some of these things? Some of them I need to just let go, and that's it. I don't need to be doing it anymore because it was just a seasonal thing, and maybe I don't need to be doing it anymore right now because it's already fulfilled the purpose for which I was doing it. For some of those other things, all I need to do is to delegate it to somebody else. And so for you listening, one of the questions that you need to ask yourself is, what am I thinking more work, or am I thinking what works? So I might need to change my perspective. I might need to change my thinking. I might need to think of the way I process that, my thinking. I might need to, and there was an interesting thing that John Maxwell said in that part of the book. I remember he said this, that if working longer or harder made you succeed, then developing countries would already be successful. I was like, whoa, that is, that was something that was really, really true. It really hit home when he said that. If working longer and working harder, if that's how you succeed, if that's the only way you succeed, working longer, working harder, because a lot of people in developing countries work harder, they work longer. One of the ways that we were taught, I remember growing up, is that you have to work longer, you have to work harder. And a lot of people work harder, they work longer, but does it convert to working smarter? Does it convert like working smarter does? No, it doesn't convert the same way. So you might want to look at the things that you're doing, in your personal life, in your business life, in your career life, and begin to say, what are the things that I need to look at and think? I don't need to do more work in this area. I just need to look at the things that are working and focus on those things that are working. I just need to focus on those things that are important and stop doing those that are not important. So not working longer, but thinking what actually works. The second question we want to look at when we think about how we think, when we think about changing how we think, is stop thinking, can I? Start thinking, how can I? Somebody might say, but those two questions they seem the same, they look the same. They might seem the same, but they are not the same. When you ask that question, when you ask that question, can I? What you're saying is you've already put a limitation on yourself. That question, can I, the book said, is filled with questions and doubts. You're now asking yourself, can I? You've already put a limit, you've already put a lid on if you are able to. But guess what? If you would just say, how can I? It's like you open up a world of possibilities for yourself. It's like you open up a whole can and you say, how can I bring it to pass? How can I do this? You begin to explore. It's almost like when you ask yourself, how can I save $100? That's an example. Versus, can I save $100? When you say, can I save $100? What you're saying to yourself is, do I have the ability to save $100? You're already sowing doubt in your mind. I don't think I can save $100. That's what you're saying to yourself. But when you begin to think, how can I? What you're saying to yourself is, there are possibilities. Could I maybe start saving $5 right now? Could I maybe say, okay, every week I'm going to be saving this amount? Could I say, okay, I'm going to join a group whereby we can pull money together and we can start saving? There are, endless possibilities. So one of the things that you need to do is just to change the way you and I think of doing things. When it comes to increasing our capacity, we need to change it, because everything really starts in the mind. Remember that quote, that verse I shared, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So sometimes the way we think can determine how things work out in our lives, can determine how, and they often determine how we do things. So stop thinking, can I? Start thinking, how can I? The third question you want to ask when you think about how we think, about changing how we think, is we need to stop thinking one door. You know what? We need to stop thinking one door, one opportunity. We need to start thinking many doors, many opportunities. So those are statements that we need to ponder on. So if I ask you, which, and I know a lot of people think of this, do you ever say, oh, there was only one opportunity open to me, I just lost that opportunity? And what does that do to your mind? It kind of makes your mind feel like, I've lost out on that opportunity, I cannot get another opportunity. When you change your thinking and you begin to think, you know what, I might have lost that opportunity last year, but God is able to open many more opportunities to me. I might have lost it maybe because I wasn't ready. I might have lost it because I didn't access it at the right time. But guess what? I might have lost it, but God can still make more opportunities available to me. And so we can change our mindset. We need to renew our mind and begin to change things. I'm going to ask Lord, how? You know what? You are opening many doors unto me, because as you think many doors, you are thinking that He's bringing many more opportunities. And what that does for you is that it helps you to begin to look around you for opportunities. It helps you to begin to look around and say, could that be an opportunity God is bringing my way? It helps you to be sensitive to opportunities. It helps you to be sensitive to things that come around there where you're thinking, oh, maybe that might be something that God is calling me to do. Versus when you're thinking, I've lost out on opportunities, you might not even think about it anymore. When you think many opportunities, what it also does is that it opens you up to possibilities. It makes you think there's going to be a way. It gives you hope that you can access opportunities that might have been lost to you a year ago, that might have been lost to you 2 years ago. I can still step into those opportunities right now. So it's really I find that first key is already a game changer. For me, it really is. Those two keys are big, but that first key is a real game changer. Changing the way we think, changing the way you do business, changing the way you think about yourself, asking yourself, you know what, it's not really, am I beautiful? It's how beautiful am I? Can you see the difference? When you know that you're beautiful, it doesn't matter what A, B, C, and D tell you, you already know. So really, it's changing your perspective about yourself. It's changing your perspective about the people around you. It's changing your perspective about the things that you do. And I find when you change the way you think, you can bring that into every area of your life. And that can lead you on the journey of increasing your capacity. Because now you begin to ask yourself questions such as, okay, you know what? It's not, you begin to ask yourself questions of, oh, how can I access that opportunity? How can I step into that door? What do I need to do? You begin to look, your heart is filled with hope of how you can increase in capacity. Remember what we said at the beginning, that growth helps us to increase. Growth would always help you to increase capacity. Okay, let's go to the second key. The second key is, what do I need, or rather, what do I need to do? I would almost put it that way. What do I need to do? And the very first thing you need to start doing, you need to stop. That book, he said it so in a very profound way. You need to stop doing only those things. Stop doing only those things you have done. Start doing those things you could do and should do. So stop doing only those things that you have done. Stop doing only those things you have done, and start doing those things you could and should do. Stop doing only those things that you've done. So there are things that you've done over and over and over and over for years. But the question is, are those things converting? Almost like what the social media, specialists will say. They'll ask you, you're running ads. Are the ads converting? That's an example. So you've been doing it. Some people will say, this is the way we do it. The question is, the way you do it, is that the right way to do it? So stop just saying, oh, I'm going to do it this way. The question is, the way you're doing it, Is that the right way? The way you're doing it, is that the best way? The way you're doing it, the way you're running that business, do you need to maybe pull away something and review and say, almost like it's great that it's coming to the end of a year. A lot of us need to just go back and say, I'm going to review the things I have been doing in 2022. Is this the best way I could have done my life in 2022? Is this the best way I could have done my marriage in 2022? This is the best way I could have raised my children in 2022? And as I step into 2023, is this the best I want to carry into 2023? Is this the best I want to take into that new year? Or are there things I need to refine? Are there things I need to review? And that is what is saying here. What do we need to do differently? What do you need to change differently? What do you need to change? What do you need to do? So you must stop doing only those things that you are currently doing, and you must start doing the things that you could do and you should do. And what does that mean? That is talking about stretching yourself. There are things that you could do that seem like, oh, this is going to stretch me. But if you start doing them, could it help you to increase your capacity? As you start doing them, could it help take you to your next level? So you might have been just doing the minimum. Maybe you need to start doing more than the minimum, and the various areas that you need to put this into practice. Yes, you want to review what you're doing right now. You want to, and the truth is that the more you do, when it comes to growth, the more you do, the more you find out the things that you should do. Why? Because you're increasing capacity, you're stretching, you're thinking, really, how come I didn't know about this 2 years ago? How come I didn't know about this 1 year ago? You want to just increase in capacity. There's so much that you need to learn about it. Let me give you a practical example. I am, how would I put it? I'm putting this curriculum together about my writer's boot camp, and I'm in the current cohort, and the book I'm writing is actually the book of that course. Write your book in 30 days. Why am I writing that book? Because I've had a few people ask me, oh, you know what, you run this course, do you actually have a resource, a book or a workbook that I could pick up and I could learn what you're teaching? But maybe you're not available to teach me right now, but I could actually learn from the book. And I thought to myself, I don't have one. So so as people ask me, I began to ponder on it and say, why did I not write a book on that? So I've always, from the first cohort, I just went in there and I taught them at the Writers Boot Camp. But now I'm asking myself, I began to ask myself, rather, why did I not create a resource? So what am I doing right now? I'm creating that resource. And as I started to write that book, guess what? It began to stretch, because now I'm having to think of the things that I just taught habitually. But now I'm having to think of the processes so that I can document the processes in the book. So sometimes we have to look at not how we've always done things. And because some of the things that we are now called to do are going to stretch us, but we must say, how can I do better? And that is how you increase capacity. You're putting a demand on yourself. You're saying, in this area, how can I do it better? And this comes from review. This comes from you pulling back. This comes from you pausing and looking at what you've done. For example, I use the example of this year. Pausing and saying, as I go into 2023, I don't want it to be business as usual. I want to be able to do what I'm doing better. In business, I want to be able to do better. In my career, I want to be able to do better. With my children, I want to be able to do better. That's one thing that I always ask myself, how can I parent better? How can I pass on the things that I'm learning to my children in a better way? How can I? So we need to ask some of those questions. And another thing that you can do when we think about what do we need to do differently. So let me put it that way. The second thing is that was written in that book is, stop doing what is expected. Start doing more than is expected. I know this is for somebody listening. For some of us, an example would be at work. You only put in your 8 hours. I'll put in. Whenever they say, oh, but there's a project that's going to take maybe another 15 minutes. You're like, no, I've got to go. I have to go. My time is up. You're looking at the time. Maybe it might be time to pause and think, could I put in a little bit extra here? Can I not only do what is required of me? Could I go over and beyond? Because that's where excellence comes in. We are going over and beyond. That's how you increase capacity. I find in the place of going over and beyond, you stretch. It's not that it's convenient, it's not that it's comfortable, it's not that it's okay to do it right now, but you choose to do it. You commit to doing it, and then what happens? You increase capacity. For personal development, you tell yourself, how can I ensure that I am able to journal every day? The answer might be, if I read a book, if I read maybe a paragraph of a book every day, if I read a chapter of a book every day, it would help me to grow. So that might be something that you want to put in place. It's not what is expected of you, but guess what? It is more than is expected. And you'll find that the more you do more than what is expected, the more you grow. So John C. Maxwell says something that a quote that I wrote in there. He says, if it's important, he says, start doing important things every day. And then he said, if it's important, don't treat it like a birthday. Treat it like something you should do every day. That was so profound for me, because some of us treat important things as a birthday. What do we mean by that? We do it once a year. We do it occasionally. We do it when we feel like, a birthday is like almost occasionally or annually, almost for some things that we do. We don't do it consistently. And so we might have to come out of that place of changing the way we do things. We want to increase capacity. Look at what you're doing right now, because what you're doing right now is determining whether you're growing or you're not growing. And you alone can really determine if you're growing or not. So that's one of the ways that you start growing. Guess what? You know that there's still so much to know. So now you're asking yourself, how can I increase capacity? How can I increase my capacity? And there was another profound statement that I found in the book. Now you begin to see why I really, really like that book. It's such a powerful guide. Another quote from that book is, your impact is a direct function of your capacity. So, a lot of us talk about impact. Oh, I want to have impact on that person. I want to have impact here. I want to have impact at work. I want to have impact at home. Guess what? You cannot give what you do not have. That is where impact really stems from. Impact is you giving what you have developed capacity for. And John Maxwell says this way. He says your impact is a direct function of your capacity. So what that tells us is that if I want to increase my impact, guess what? I must increase my capacity. If you want to increase your impact in any area of life, get ready for the work that's going to be involved. It's not going to be it's not going to be a walk in the park. You and I are going to have to put in the work. God is there to help us. God is there to grace us. God is there to add His super to your natural, but you're going to have to first put in the work. There's another quote that I love in that book that says, there is nothing in your past that determines your future. You can change it. Your capacity must grow. If you and I want to change that future that we see, that we want to see a better future, guess what? We must start from right now. We must start to change and ask myself, so how am I going to change the way I'm thinking? Do I need to change it? How am I going to change the things that I'm doing? Are there things that I need to tweak? Actually, this is a phenomenal for me to share this, because for me, there are things that I've started to tweak and say, okay, going to next year, I'm not going to do this. I can share some of them with you. Going to next year, I need to drop that. I need to delegate that. I need to start doing that. I need to stop doing this. That could be a question for you. And one of the questions I would love you to, to ask yourself is, where would you like your impact to be? That's one of the questions that was asked in the book. Where would you like your impact to be? Because guess what? Or rather, the first question was, where is your impact right now? And then where would you like your impact to be? The difference is the limit of your capacity. So you and I determine the limit of our capacity. As much as we're wanting to impact others, we're going to have to grow in capacity to impact others. The more we grow our capacity, the more our impact grows, which means the more we grow our understanding, the more we grow our knowledge, the more we grow ourselves, the more you can impact others. The more you grow yourself, the more you can add to others. If you don't add value to yourself first, it is going to be difficult to add value to others. So you're wanting to add value to the people in your life, you're wanting to add value to people at work, you're wanting to add value to people in your sphere of influence that God has called you to. Ask yourself, how much of impact do I want to add to myself first? And that is the difference in the limits of our capacity, which means that we stretch ourselves. The more we stretch, the more we grow. And the more we want to go, the more we have to be willing to stretch. It's going to stretch us. There's so many things that I've done this year that have stretched me, but it's interesting that there's more that God is calling me to do that I'm just stepping into. There is more for next year already. I'm thinking, God, but how is this going to be done? But He's saying you can do it. You just need to increase capacity. This increased capacity will be increasing in value. The more I want to impact others, the more I'm going to have to increase in value. The more I'm going to have to increase in capacity. And that is why this weekend coming up, the 10th of December, guess what? I'm having a Position for Intentional Impact Masterclass. I'm so excited. And this masterclass, really what it is a free masterclass, but registration is mandatory. I'm going to be looking at 6 practical pillars that can help you and I position ourselves for impact, for influence, and wealth in 2023 and beyond. We want to look at those 6. What are those 6 pillars? What are some of the things that some things that can help us to position ourselves for that, for those opportunities? Remember, I share with you many doors, many opportunities. For those opportunities that God is going to bring our way, because you'll find out that some doors that God opens up to you, if you have not increased capacity, you cannot step into those doors. That's just the truth of it. And then you end up missing out on that opportunity. So are there ways that you can position yourself so that when those doors open up, guess what? You will be able to step into. Are there ways that I can position myself so that as God open up those doors, I will be able to step into them? Why not join me at this free masterclass? It's going to be a 60 to 90 minute masterclass, and it's going to be free, like I said. But guess what? You have to register, and all you have to do is to go to www.oluolabode.com/impact. And guess what? I'll see you on the other side. I'm looking forward to those that are going to be joining me for that masterclass. Have a phenomenal rest of your week.